Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're still on the Polity, reaching you live from our Abuja studios, and I am Babajide. Now joining me are two guest analysts, and to my right is Akinbisola, CEO Youth Employ. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
All right, and to my left is none other than Stephen Adewale, of course, a public affairs analyst. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, how are you? It's safe to ask, how are you in this economy, given what is going on right now? How are you, gentlemen?
Very well.
All right. Okay, now let's just get into nitty-gritty for today proper. There's been lots of back and forth with Kano State, where the verdict was passed last week, but then the certified true copy was released to most of the parties, and they've said there's been an error, and we've had the back and forth between the judicial part and of course the parties, and now the judiciary has said it is clerical error. And it begs the question, isn't that an expensive one, given the state at which we have the polity right now? I mean, when it comes to political matters, we know how heated it is right now on the polity. But then my first question will go to, of course, Stephen Adewale, to help us analyze most of these things, especially Kano State. What do you have to say about this judgment?
Thank you very much, Mercy.
Okay.
I think what happened recently in about 3 states, in Zamfara, then in Kano, and in Plateau.
Yeah.
I think it calls for concern. It also shows that all the stakeholders, that they need to go back to the drawing board.
Okay.
Because Nigeria happens to be the only country in the world today that we have to allow that our judiciary play a lot of roles in whoever emerge as the winner of an election. And unfortunately, we witnessed what happened in Liberia recently.
Okay.
That was one of the countries that we helped to restore law and order. Election was held. There was no problem. There was no crisis. The winner emerged, and even the sitting president lost out, and he congratulated
the new
before the election was ended.
Yes.
Even before the election was ended. Another election held in Sierra Leone, another country that we also helped to restore a democracy, and there was no problem. So how come that it's only in this country that will continue to have this problem? So it's quite unfortunate. So all the stakeholders need to sit down, and they must be ready to play the game according to the rule. But as long as we have politicians who will continue to cut corners, who will continue to look for easy avenue to emerge as winners, then there will always be problems. And as regards the Kano State election and the verdict that was delivered recently by the appeal court, it's quite unfortunate. Personally, I'm not a lawyer, but I was a politician. As the former chairman of a Social Democratic Party in Ondo State, I was also an active player during the last general election. And I know that when we want to blame we can blame our judiciary as much as we want. But like I said, stakeholders must also be ready to play the game according to the rule. The Electoral Act was very clear during the last general election. For you to be a member of a political party, your name must be duly submitted to the INEC. And virtually all political parties were mandated to submit the names of their candidates. And the SDP submitted a lot of other political parties, even including the NNPP. Unfortunately, at that time, there were a lot. It's not only the problem is not peculiar to NNPP. There were a lot of other political parties whose candidates emerged at the primary level, but whose names were not did not appear in the attendance. In the political party register submitted to INEC. But we have a lot of contradictory verdicts in the recent times. Remember the appeal, the verdict on the presidential election, the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. They made it clear that some of these things, that it was actually a party affair, because one of the allegation leveled against Labour Party at the time was that even the Peter Obi himself was not a member of the Labour Party at the time of the party conducted its primary. But Election Presidential Petition Tribunal made it clear that that it was a party affair. Now the decision that was the verdict that was delivered by appeal court recently contradicted that, because now they are making it clear that that the governor of Kano State was not a a valid, was not a bona fide member of NNPP as at the time the primary was conducted. So now that aside, there's also another problem. The problem is that the appeal court is trying to make it clear now that voters can be punished for the mistake or the error committed by the INEC electoral officers. Because if you look at that election, what they deducted 165,000 votes from the NNPP's vote, which was what made them to declare the APC candidate as the valid winner of that election. But what they are trying to say is that, look, that this 165,000 votes, that those results were not properly signed, duly signed or endorsed by electoral officers.
But if we even told that part, that means there's going to be lots of.
Now we already had a contradict. There was another verdict that was even more superior to that. In 2007, when the then candidate Buhari of CPC went to approach the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court made it clear. That's in the case between Yaradua and Buhari. The Supreme Court made it clear. Even at that time, the electoral results were not properly serialized. It was not only that, and that none of them was even endorsed. But Supreme Court made it clear that the position of Buhari at that time could not surpass that, could not make them that they could not go out of their way to invalidate the decision that had already been taken by the voters. Which means that if Supreme Court had already taken that decision in 2007, then why do we now have to come back to that same level and remain in this circle again in 2023? So, but whatever decision that was taken at that, I know that it's not the end, because it's just at the appeal court level. Definitely they will go to the Supreme Court, and one can only hope that Supreme Court will help to normalize the situation and to pronounce and to adjudicate on it in a way that our electoral system will become better for it.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that good analysis. Now to you, Akin, they've said it's an error, a clerical error. How do you think this is going to affect them moving forward to Supreme Court? Because whether we like it or not, it's a huge blow on the judiciary, where they've said, oh, you were supposed to be, they've said that's the court for the poor man. But then now, coming to politics, people want, of course, we can only have one winner and one loser. And then some persons have voted for NNPP, some persons voted for APC. But then in the case where NNPP is fighting for their mandate, and then they've come out to say, oh, you made this error, don't you think that's a slap on the judiciary to even start with now, before we get into the verdicts proper? Okay, so I think Mr. Adewale has really did justice to part of that. But what I'm going to say is that it is safe to say that our judiciary in this country is on trial. And the truth is that what is happening currently, just like you said about the 2007 verdict and what you have in 2023, I believe we are supposed to be progressing. I believe we are supposed to be making progress as a nation, our judicial system, and cut across our government agencies and policies and all that. So if we are where we are today, and I would just want to blame it on our lack of consistency, and that's the problem we have as a country. We lack consistency. People do things, and both judiciary, our government officials, our elected office holders and all that, they do things most times to suit them. So they interpret it to suit whatever they want. Yes, it's always to suit them. It's so unfortunate to say that these people are even less concerned about you and me. And the truth of the matter is that elections will always have consequences, and that's what. So I believe that if you look at what has happened in Kano, declaring Nasiru Kano as the winner of the election after having to subtract 165,000, and what they had complained was some were not properly stamped or signed and all that. You know, is unfortunate, and I believe that if Governor Yusuf has lost at the tribunal first from the subtraction, and if Court of Appeal is saying that this guy is not a member of the party as at the time the election primary was conducted, because you know, according to the election petition tribunal and all that, you are supposed to be a member of a party at least 180 days before the election. Aside that, you're supposed to be sponsored by the political party. But what they are holding against Governor Yusuf now is that he was not he was not in the frame of that wine. But thinking about it, gentlemen, there's something they've said, it's pre-election matters.
Yeah.
Do you think the court should actually have a say over pre-election matters? Because they had this issue in Plateau State where they actually threw the case out of the court, where they said, oh, this was pre-election matters and the court has no say. But then when are we going to actually get to a point where judiciary has a uniform or synergized verdict, where you know that, oh, if it's this case, if it's going to be about election matters, and if it's going to be picking the person representing a political party, then we know that, oh, this is what the court is going to say, because that was what they said later. Because now you know that even we are still dragging the issue of and FCT for the PEPT. They see that one on ground, where we had some persons from FCT coming out to say, oh, if FCT is not giving any special privilege, then make it a state.
I think it's still our lack of consistency. People will do things to suit the way we are. There's supposed to be some form of consistency. Just like you said, we are supposed to know that when you put 1 + 1, it will give me 2. So when 1 + 1 gave one person 2, and you are telling that person that 1 + 1 is 11, then there's a problem. So there's a problem with that judiciary. There's a problem. We have a problem.
Okay.
Yes. Just as my colleague has said, our electoral jurisprudence has a lot of issues. Okay. And aside from, let's start with the corruption. Now, you mentioned certified true copy of the verdict earlier. If you want to refer to something as a clerical error, clerical error could only be that probably you made a mistake, you commit an error, maybe a typographical error, or maybe you made a mistake in a paragraph. But you don't come out to say it, or to attach a problem to clerical error. When from the beginning of the document to the end, it was very clear that verdict was in favor of the sitting governor of Kano State. So it's quite unfortunate. So it shows that it's more or less like, it's not even like it shows, it's obvious that whatever verdict that was delivered on that day, it was more or less like an afterthought. It's obvious that the decision had already been taken, and the decision was taken in favor was taken in favor of the sitting governor. Then another problem that we have is this issue of pre-election and post-election matters. For the past 8 years now, a lot of people have been agitating that, look, that we should not allow the pre-election matters to pre-election matters to affect the result of the election, because there are a lot of factors, there are a lot of things that are going to be affected. First, the country is even going to lose a lot of resources. In 2007, for example, in Anambra State, Peter Obi claimed at that time, was arguing as the governor that his time was not yet that he was not yet he was still the one in power. That because you know the constitution says that your 4 years will continue to count from the day you take oath of office. And considering the fact that he did not take that oath of office in 2003, he was making that case, and he went to court. And when he got to court, and the court made it clear that INEC should not go ahead with that election. INEC still went ahead with that election. And if you look at the Supreme Court verdict, the verdict was that the Supreme Court berated the political class and even the INEC, that you don't just waste the country's resources for nothing, over nothing. So, and at the end of this, it means that whatever exercise that took place in Anambra at that time was just null and void. And similar thing was what we witnessed in Plateau, because there was already a case in court that made it, and the verdict made it clear that there must be a primary election. And the primary election failed to take place, and they went ahead and sponsored the candidate. That's why the appeal court said this election was invalid, that the other candidate, the other man was the bona fide winner. Now we should get to that point whereby whatever pre-election matters that we have, those pre-election matters should be must be resolved before the election day. Whatever is going to be taken to the either presidential election petition tribunal or even any electoral tribunal should be the post-election matters. So this is the only thing that can help us in Nigeria. But a situation where you allow what happens in 2022 to linger till 2023, and you now now expect that our court and the judges who were not even actors, who were not there when those things were taking place. So the only thing they were going to rely on was just the evidence presented before them. So we need to get to that level where we make sure that we separate our pre-election matters from the post-election matters.
I think I also have a suggestion. I think it's not wise for us to, after the election has been conducted, it's not wise for us to, a winner has been declared, right? Some of the candidates will not be satisfied with the result or the declaration. It's not wise for us to do all these courts back and forth before swearing. It's not going to be cost.
Yes, that's really going to go a long way in helping us. But it means that we have to make sure that our National Assembly members, that they live up to their responsibilities, and that we have to make them responsible, because it will require us to change the existing electoral act.
But speaking about what he said now, don't you think the power of incumbency would actually play a major effect? Because we see how people talking about the former President Buhari having adverse effects on this said election, which brought in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, saying, no, he's from APC and this from APC. Now imagine if it was the sitting president still, and then we see at court most of these cases in court. What do you think would have happened?
Okay, so I've not thought in that line, but I think that for me, I'm looking at it from the place of saving the country's resources. Let's give an instance. Somebody has been sworn in. You know how most of our political office holders behave. Somebody has been sworn in. Maybe in between the first 3 months, 6 months, you're still going to court, that back and forth and all that. This person already has power, right? Appointed SSAs, they've bought cars, they've done this, they've done that, they've started spending state resources, to put things in place for themselves, and these resources, if this person is declared, maybe the election was declared, maybe no longer in the person's favor, the person has to leave the office and somebody else is come. And do you know that most times, some of these people, they take those short avenue they have to loot the government resources, and the next person coming, whoever is going, who is now the bona fide winner, maybe by the court or something, we now have to start spending all over again. I think it's wiser for us to look at how we can mitigate this, and as a country, just like you said, our lawmakers, our judicial system, let them live up to their expectation. Whatever we need to do immediately after the election has been declared, all this, let us achieve them very fast, and we can now look at our swearing. So when we know you're swearing somebody, you're not swearing somebody, you are sitting on a seat and I'm sure it's your seat, not just looking up and down that okay, something can happen to me. So that's what I suggest.
Yes, there are a lot of ways that the influence of presidency can be whittled down when it comes to the electoral matters. The first and some of these things, they are not new. Some of these suggestions, they are the suggestions that they are the recommendations that have been thrown out there since 1999. But as a result of the selfishness of our political class, many of them decided to set those recommendations aside. The first thing that will even help the country is that all our elections must be held on the same day. That is the first step, and that step, it will not only help our electoral jurisprudence, it will also help even the country financially, because it means that the country will save a lot of resources. Nigeria is the only country where you have to go through this series of staggered elections. If you're having a presidential election, Senate, National Assembly election, then have the State House of Assembly election, have the governorship election on the same day. Then the second recommendation, which has been made over time, which our political class had decided not to embrace, is that look, all these post-electoral matters, take it away from the customary court. Now, because these judges who are there now, they are staff of they are more or less like a civil servant. So they are being paid. So they are responsible to one person or the other. And we all know what it takes to even appoint judges. Right from the magistrate, we know that you must have one political connection or the other before you can even be employed. But we have pools of retired judges who have been there, many of them that we know that these are highly principled and incorruptible people. So set up another tribunal entirely. Let that tribunal be managed by the retired judges. Those retired judges, they will know that they don't have they don't have anybody to be responsible to or to be afraid of. They don't have to be afraid that probably whatever decision I take is going to affect
so you're talking about having an independent judiciary.
Definitely, an independent tribunal that will be presiding over our electoral matters. So these are the steps that can actually be taken to mitigate some of these things that we see. But as long as we don't do that, as long as our political class continue in this manner, we continue to have problems. And the most important thing is that we need to even make sure that, like I said, all the stakeholders need to go back to the drawing board. If you look at the last election, virtually all the political parties, even including my own party, all of them were guilty. Because virtually all of you witnessed imposition at one level of the other. So there are a series of impositions everywhere. There are people who are here today and tomorrow you hear that they are already contesting here. Look at what is happening in Ebonyi. The case is still pending in court. If what happened in Jos, if they are saying what happened in Plateau is that is correct, then which means that the one in Ebonyi should be predictable in the sense that the person who happened to be the governor of Ebonyi State today, when he was contesting, he was a member of PDP. He was the speaker of the State House of Assembly. And our constitution and the Electoral Act made it clear that you must be sponsored by a political party. And that's the party that you are going to be represented. It means as at the time he was being sponsored by APC, he was still a member of PDP. He was still the sitting speaker of PDP. And he contested as the governor of APC as a speaker under the PDP, representing People's Democratic Party. So all our political class, they are guilty. We must be ready to do the right thing. We must be ready to do things the right way. So as long as we continue in this man, definitely we continue to have this problem.
Okay, all right. I think we can never overflog this particular topic, but then let's move on to youth inclusion, of course, and governance. We've had something different in this new administration where we've had the Minister of Youth as contradicting to what we usually have, where we have Minister of Youth and Sports. That means it looks like the government has focused on the youth and their development. But then let's take an estimate of the Nigeria's youth population. That's about 60% in Nigeria, and most of these people are under the age of 25, making it the youngest country in Africa. And then let's talk about the awareness and recognition of the democratic power and the whole that's undoubted. It has increased, especially with the last election, where we've had most youths gearing up and going out to, of course, support whoever they feel is viable or a good candidate for them. But then in all of this, I'd like us to first start with the inclusion in government. We've seen people that are less than 40 in this said governance. Is that a good way to say? Because I've always said I'm not a mediocre. I'm not going to settle for less. At the end of the day, it looks like we see have the same people from 1984, the same people from 1960 still ruling us. But do you think this is one step forward for us as youth in Nigeria?
Thank you. Well, it's a good thing that we have more youth in government, maybe than we have in 1999 or than we have in than we have even in 2019. So it's actually a very good thing. And the role of youth in any society can never be overestimated. In fact, our leaders, they continue to argue at the United Nations that one of the responsible factors for our backwardness in Africa was due to the fact that at a point in the history of Africa that slavery took place, and that our able people, especially from 18 to 35, they were taken out of the continent. So they continue to argue. And when you look at Nigeria, you realize that when the country gained independence in 1960, we did not really have this problem. There was no argument of youth inclusion, because at that time, as the country was young, then we also had a lot of young people in power. In fact, most of our leaders at that time, the president who emerged, many of them at 27 and 28, they were already running the affairs of the country. So, but by 1988, when the country was about 28 years old, it was already becoming glaring that, look, those who were there in 1960, they were still there as at 1988. So the leadership of the country at that time now decided, look, that probably it was high time for us to have a national youth policy plan, which was what they introduced at the time. So they came up with the national youth policy plan. Then later, even the not too young to run, it was more or less like a direct reflection of the national youth and national youth policy of the country. So it's a good thing that, and now we have this not too young to run policy. It's no longer just a plan. It has been endorsed, and it's part of the constitution. And that's why you have young people 26, 27 at different state houses of assembly. You have even 30 years, 30 something years,
25.
Yes. So it's actually a very good thing. But my own position on this is still very clear. As a major stakeholder who participated in the last general election, I know that it's not just about words. We have to make sure that we put that into practice. As long as we continue to have electoral system that is highly monetized, it's going to deprive a lot of young people who have what it takes, the intellectual way with that, to develop the country. Most of the people that you see today that are there today, either at the different state houses of assembly or at the National Assembly, virtually 97% of them, I can authoritatively tell you, many of them belong to one, they were sponsored by one political godfather or political godmothers, because our election is highly monetized. So, and for you to be able to make it to that level at the age of 25, so you know that you have to spend a lot of money. Yes, political parties are really doing the little they can do. For example, if you are 25 years old, I know that all political parties today, once you are 25, you only have to pay half of the stipulated amount for the form. If, for example, the last election SDP, I know that if you are running for the State House of Assembly election, you have to pay 500,000. But it means as a 25 less than 30 years old person, you are only paid 250. In fact, some even paid 200,000. But it's not limited to that. To run election in Nigeria is extremely expensive. We have to look at our electoral expenses and make sure that we make it convenient and congenial for young people to be able to really participate and run.
Okay. All right, now over to you, Akin.
Okay, so if I'm going to comment on that, I think looking at the not young to run bill that was passed, I think is commendable, and I think it's also good to commend the effort of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, some of the appointments they have made and all that. And if we have the kind of youth population that we have in Nigeria, over 60%, our youth. So we need to understand that the best thing we can do as a nation to move forward is to make sure that youth are being included, they are being involved in our political space, they are being involved in our decision making. Because for me, I believe, as a founder of Youth Employ, I believe that our youth, we have enormous potentials. We are innovative, we are charismatic, we are brilliant, we have intelligent youth all over the world doing exceptional things, and we can begin to bring in those our expertise, those our innovations. We can bring our own contribution. We can put in our own best, and contribute our own quota to development of this country. And I like to see something, this is not a time where we are waiting to be given the opportunity. There are some times when you get to the table, you have to come with your own chair. So you don't have to wait for, you're waiting for to be given opportunity. No, this is the time where we have to know that Nigeria is our own. Unfortunately, and it's just the truth, most of these old men have been there for years. Some of them 30 years.
Speaking of old men, I like the fact that you mentioned that, because it brings me to my next question. Okay. There's something they said about recycling the same set of persons over and over again. It feels like you said something about when they started at 27. But if you actually check the chain of command in Nigeria, it's still the same people that ruled at 27 that are still ruling at age 87 and 67, 70s. But then even for those that are not ruling, let's check the young people. They are either descendants of these same persons that were there before, or they are linked to this same person. So connection wise, and are we looking at compensation? Are we looking at getting a government that is free and fair of nepotism?
Well, in every country where democracy is practiced, even the United States of America, that we always use as our watchword. Realize that all these things are also there. If you see George Bush the father, then you see George Bush the son. Then you see Bill Clinton the husband, then you see Hillary Clinton the wife, who also aspired to be the. So you see things like that in all those in that system. So in our system, so there is nothing actually wrong with having leaders, because we are all citizens of the country. The fact that a leader rules the country doesn't mean that a son.
But are you trying to say we shouldn't give room for opportunity to other Nigerians?
No, what I'm saying is that
I think
he has said the right thing. That this is the time for us to take the bull by the horn as the youth. You don't just sit back and wait for them to come to you with the opportunity. So if you continue to sit back and fold our hands, those who knows how to take the advantage will continue to take the advantage. So, but the major problem we have in Nigeria is the fact that we don't have a level playing field for everybody in the country. If we have that level playing field, if we create a scenario, an environment where the child of a bricklayer can decide to run for a councillorship position that will not require spending too much money within its immediate environment, and people will say, oh, we know our father is a very good, his father is a good person and all that, then let's vote for him. If we create that, and if we create that mindset and people start from that level, definitely we will not have any problem with whoever is coming from any ruling from the aristocratic class. So, but we don't have that level playing field. That is the problem we have. In America, you can have Clinton, you can have Bush, you can also have the likes of Obama, who came from nothing and then and they were able to get somewhere. So that is what we need to replicate here, and we can only replicate that not by the constitution. We already have the not too young to run bill. We already have a lot of other bills, progressive bills. But we need leadership that will be able to help us to put that into practice, that will be able to deal with these things holistically without any form of selfishness. So that is what we lack, and that is what we need.
So I think that this is a time where we as Nigerian youth, this is a time where we have to take a responsibility. And I'm not saying this to say we could have not been taking responsibility. If you look at the last election, our voice was very loud. But the problem I have? The problem I have is that sometimes when the election are around the corner, the ginger is high and all that, our morale is high. And once election ends, our morale goes down,
After election.
Yes, and we have a problem of always waking up. For instance, 2020 election is concluded. We are just doing the court and all that, but most of the 98% or 99% is already gone, except for the court cases here and there, right? Now is the time to begin to plan and to position yourself for 2027. You don't wait till 2026. You cannot sleep as a blunder, wake up as a wonder. So this is the time we need to begin to take responsibility as young people in Nigeria. If you want to join the political party, this is the time. And it's not just about wanting to contest for election or being in the political class. I will also say this: it's important for us to continue to make a difference in our own space. Sometimes that's when the searchlight will come and meet you. Most of the people that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has appointed today, let's take the lines of the Honorable Minister of Communications, right? Bosun Tijani. He has been doing a lot of work around what he was appointed for today. Take a look at people like even the Minister of Youth. A lot of these guys have been doing something around that part. So the SSAs and all that, a lot of them have been doing something along that part. Some of them were not even fully involved in politics. So this is the time for us to, in our own quota, in your own space there, as you're watching me now, your own space, what are you doing to contribute to the development of Nigeria? How patriotic are you? What are you doing? Are you contributing your own quota? So every one of us will have a role to play.
Sorry to badge you, because everybody feels when we talk about the youth and inclusion in governance, everybody feels it has to be politics. Everybody feels that's politics, and then everybody has to be, what are you contesting for? Of course, they've passed the not too young to rule bill, and then they feel like if you're not a politician, if you're not going for a councillor, you're going for this. But then I'd like to just tell our viewers that whether you are vying for a position or you are supporting someone vying for that position, in one way or the other, you are contributing.
Yes. The truth is that the only way we can have the Nigeria of our dream is when we have the right leadership meeting the right followership.
That's correct.
If you have the right leadership and the followership, they are let me use this word. Sorry. Let me say we have leaders who are ready to make it right, but we have the followership who have coconut head, who will not move forward. So when we have the right leadership and the right followership with the right mindset, that's what we can get to where we are. People who believe in their leaders, and leaders who are ready to also be accountable to their followers, and followers are also ready to make the leaders accountable. That's how we can get it right in this country. It's not just about talk, come online on Twitter, tweet. No, in your own space. Don't just criticize the government. Some of us are criticizing government officials that are taking bribe and all that. In your own little space, so you are doing something. You are cheating your neighbor. You are doing, So we need to begin to have the positive mindset, not just as office holders, but remember that everywhere you find yourself, you are a Nigerian, and you must do something to make Nigeria work. Thank you.
All right. Still speaking about youth, I'd like to ask us, even though I probably have my own answer, but do you think a youth participation in whether governance or, and when I mean governance, it doesn't necessarily mean politics right now. In any sphere you find yourself in, either a governing body, an office or something, do you think this actually helps with the level of, let's say, corruption we have and the issues we have majorly with youth? Because there are some persons have said, I remember during the election period where there were adverts out there warning youth not to be weapons of warfare for most politicians, because they feel these are things that actually happen on the polity. Do you actually think involving them in one way or the other is actually a way to actually curb all of these issues or menace we have with youths in Nigeria?
Well, change is gradual. If it is not a revolution is the only thing that can take place that will turn everything upside down. We know that we are not going to have a revolution we are not going to have a democratic revolution. When we had it in 2015, so it did not change anything at the end of the day. So the change is gradual. And if you look at the participation, just as my colleague had said, if you look at the participation of the youth during the last general election, that we have never had that kind of participation in the history of the country. So it shows that if more people are becoming politically conscious and they are now showing more interest on who runs the affair and who dictates the pace on the day-to-day pace of the country's affairs. So it shows that with time we can actually get there. But if you want to look at this last election till now, I can say from what we have seen now that we've not really been able to see the results. We didn't see the result because, like I said, it's gradual, but when people are taking a decision the first time, it might be that probably that decision is not likely to probably be the right decision. A lot of mistakes were made during the last general election. It's not just about youth, just as you said, by running for an election. We also need to have people who will become politically conscious to the point that they will start questioning those who are running for one position or the other. Hold them accountable. Don't our leaders, because if we continue to blame our leaders, then let's make sure that we don't make the same mistake, commit the same errors that those our leaders have committed. Most of our young people, we are still voting based on emotions, based on sentiment. So look at the last general election, for example. Let me use the political parties that is very popular among the youth. That's the Labour Party. Now you have a Labour Party whereby whereby you see the Peter Obi as the Messiah. Meanwhile, all the individuals who sit at the decision making table of the party, they were also part of the aristocrats that were condemning. Now those individuals went ahead and imposed their own people on at different elective positions of the party. Now by the time people were voting, many people did not even know the candidates of Labour Party. They went ahead and they just voted. After the election, we learned that some mechanic and all that, there is nothing wrong in that. But the question is that if somebody is running for an office, the person must know what he or she is going to do at that office, and you that you are voting, you must know that this person is actually going to achieve this. That's why you see them. That's why now that they are there at the National Assembly, that's why you've not really seen any meaningful difference. That's why you see that they are sharing 160 million and they they are also waiting to collect it because they even need it more than even those that have been there for years. So these are the problems that we have. So but the change is gradual. You can imagine if we have about 46 House of Assembly members, National Assembly members in both Senate and the House of Assembly, young people who are there, who are actually ready for genuine change, who are there shaking the table on a daily basis. We don't need to have even the president of the country. The Senate president will have no choice but to do the right thing. The president will have no choice but to pay attention to what is going on at the National Assembly. So this is the problem that we have. We have to continue to sensitize our people. We have to continue to talk to them, and we have to continue to use platforms such as this to let them understand that look, 2027 is around the corner. Let's not commit the same error that we committed the last time. Let's make sure that we put the interest. We all love our country. It's just that the way we went about it the last time was extremely wrong. Let's make sure that this coming years we do things the right way. And just as my colleague has said, this is the right time to start. We shouldn't wait until 2026 and now say we want to rally around one bizarre that doesn't know what is going to do at the office. Let's start now. Let even the sitting government continue to feel that continue to feel the point that look, something is actually going on out there, that there is actually a movement out there. Today I watched the picture of some past presidential candidates. They met together. They said they call it coalition merger. At the end of the day, if care is not taken, these are the people that will come up in 2026 and they will say, okay, we are appointing one person, and they say that they've matched together, and people will follow them. It will be the same set of people, the same set of policy with APC, the same manifesto, and at the end of the day, they will get there and will remain.
I think we need new blood, sir. We need new people. We need new faces, right? We need new people in our political space, you know. So, and just like you said, and like we have been saying, we need to now begin to come out. Let's begin to look at, let us know if the youth really want to make a change. Let's begin to know people that we want to see in some of the political offices in 2027, and this is time to start.
Okay, right. Still speaking about youth inclusion, there is something major that has been bothering on the polity, and that's the issue of certificate forgery and not completion of school for most of these sitting politicians. But then the main issue is we have high school certificates become government ministers, and lots of people, and then we are saying the qualified and competent young youth, they have no option but to work under this set of people. And of course we still have the issue of some persons, some youths have come and say, oh, school na scam. Or then you go to school at the end of your 5 years or 6 years. Let's say ASU permits you to graduate after 6 years. Then you move into the Nigerian labor market, and then you struggle to go through all of this, and then you end up working under someone that still has issues with getting their certificates together, or in the case of a particular governor where they said they couldn't find even his NYC certificate, which we know how that ended, of course. Do you think this is actually a normal thing? Should it be a normal thing in Nigeria now? Because now we are trying to say school is not a scam. These are things that life is a process, but then they are making it look like, oh, you can just jump the gun. I don't want it to seem like an aspire to Maguire kind of thing, but I'd like us to actually analyze this kind of thing, that going to school and then coming out of school and say, oh, following due diligence, it still actually works for politics in Nigeria, not just politics, governance.
Okay, let me start this way. The country we have today, we have a lot of intelligence. We have a lot of highly educated people, even among our political class. But you know, like we say, in a system where you have corruption, where corruption is the order of the day, definitely there will be individuals who will come into that space, and they will come with questionable credentials. So assuming we allow all our institutions to work the way they ought to work. We were just talking about court the other time, for example. Look at this court. In the last 6 years, I mean the last 6 months, just on the same elections the same election that was conducted in February 2023, appeal court that is just one Appeal court is just one. Just because whatever decision that is taken in Kaduna is the same decision that is recognized by. It's just for administrative purpose that they say, okay, that should be appeal court in Abuja in Kaduna, in Edo, and all that. So, but if you look, we will see that we are witnessed about 13 different contradictory verdicts. So, in a situation like that, you continue to have series of issues. In 1999, we had a speaker. The speaker at that time, his real age was 26 years old. That's Salisu Buhari. He went ahead and added to the number of years and said he was 35 years old. Then also, he never went to school, but he said he went to University of Toronto, and he presented the certificate. At that time, a journalist went to town and they discovered that he was blind. The first thing the president did at that time was to remove the man, was to make sure that he removed the man. The man himself who had no choice, he had to tender the apology and he resigned. But look at what has been happening in the last 8 years. We even our president, we had a president who had been an army general, who had been the military head of state, that could not even present his own secondary school certificate to us. And now it has now deteriorated to the point that we now even have the sitting president, and we have a minister that is still serving, that is still an NYSC member, and she's there, and nobody is saying anything, and the president himself is looking away. So in such a situation, there will always be a problem, and ordinarily people ought to have approached court and said, look, this thing ought to be done this way. But even the petition tribunal, that's Presidential Electoral Petition Tribunal, already made it clear that, look, that whatever certificate, when they were adjudicating over the certificate issue of President Tinubu, so they've already made the pronouncement in such a way that other people will be discouraged to even approach the court for something similar to that. So we need to make sure that we have this strong institution, and we cannot have strong institution when there is no clear autonomy between the presidency and the legislature and also the judiciary. So as long as we continue to have all these problems, it's even only the ones that we see that we're talking about. There are a lot of these things going on, atrocities being committed at the state level, and nobody is even blinking, and nobody blinks an eye. So it's a serious problem, and it's something that we really need to make sure that we tackle head on.
Okay, all right. Over to you, Akin.
No, I think I'm good with this.
Okay, all right. Then that means we have to call it a day for today, because if we actually talk about this issue, we're going to just elongate our time. But then I'd like you to leave a note for our youths. This is not something we do often on Polity, but then with what you guys have said, I like the fact that this first time I'm having two guests that are actually coming together and saying, oh yes, we agree with each other on Polity. So I'd like you to leave a note with our youth as regards the coming election, not just the election, the society at large, whether we like it or not. We are contributing to the society, whether we like it or not. If we cannot reach politics and can't be in governance one way or the other, we are contributing. So I'd like you to leave a note with our youth.
Well, I just want to appreciate our young people, because we are actually doing well. Okay. If you look at entertainment today, so we are there. So if you look at even technology-wise, wherever you see us across the world, so we are doing well. So everywhere you see us, so Nigerian youth are actually doing well, and we also have the population. So what makes it look like we are not really doing well, we are not doing enough, is because politically the country has failed to get it right, and most of the young people, many young people are not getting the opportunity to actually effect the kind of change that they would have loved. So, but our appeal to the young people that we still have more work to do. If this country is going to turn around in the next 4 years, so it depends on how we go about our politics. We are talking about monetization of political systems. We are talking about vote buying. We are talking about snatching of ballot boxes. It is young people that these individuals used to achieve all this. If you have 60% of the population, if they are youth, it means that we are the ones even voting these people in power. So it is high time we organized ourselves, and it is high time we come together and we shouldn't look at these existing political parties as our savior, because what we have presently, if you place the manifesto of PDP and APC and SDP and all of them side by side, you realize that they are more or less the same. So there is no radical difference. So, but we need to know that we are the ones that can actually organize ourselves, so that by 2027 we are not talking of establishing new political parties. But if young people are now moving in, just as they moved into Labour Party, if they are moving into any party at that time, they will have the numbers to even effect necessary change in the leader in what will take place in that political party. So we need to begin to organize ourselves, and we shouldn't see each other as enemy. We can always have that's the beauty of democracy. You can support APC, I can support PDP, the other person can support Labour Party. So, but the fact that a young person is supporting APC doesn't mean that young person is a sellout, or that he has collected money. Or it just shows that person, probably by one reason or the other, is supporting this party. So we need to make them see reasons on why they have to support our own cause. So we shouldn't do it by force. We shouldn't compel them. So we should try as much as possible to tone down our level of attack on social media and see how we can move along together and see how we can effect the necessary change in 2027.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Over to you, Akin. I'd like you to.
Nigerian youth, we are amazing. We are doing very well in different sectors. All over the world, our youth are making us proud as a nation. And I would just want to encourage us to not give up yet on Nigeria. I say this often, Nigeria is going to work. Nigeria is going to work. And it's only work when we as young people are ready to put in our own best, work alongside our political office holders, and make our own contribution, and as much as possible, just like we're doing currently, continue to make sure our voices are heard. You will see some of the changes that happened in the last during the appointment and all that was some of people just ranting on Twitter. So you may think government is not seeing, they are seeing. So let's keep talking and let's keep doing. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I just had the powerful session with Akin and Stephen today on the Polity, but this is where we draw the curtain for today's Polity. And of course, like they've rightly said, this is the time to get it right, and do not wait till 2026 before you start saying, oh, now on our mandate we shall stand. You will not stand on any mandates. But then I remain Mercy Babajide. See you same time, same station tomorrow. Bye.